Hello. Happy Monday.
Hey, Mondays.
It is a beautiful day in the desert.
Yes.
Did a little sand playing today. Went out to the sand dunes.
It was nice.
Found a genie lamp.
Yes, in the sand.
Yep. I have a fluff of hair right here.
Indeed you do. So welcome back to your Daily Dose. I'm Julie.
I'm Sean, Frauder MTO.
And today we're going to be talking about scrying.
Daily dose of scrying.
What is scrying?
It's when you get really upset over something and you break down and water comes out of your eyes and...
It's making fun of me. I'm kidding. No, scrying is...
Scrying.
Scrying, not crying.
Crying.
Keep going. Serenade us.
Scrying.
Scrying.
Oh. Well, I've taught a class on this several times before.
But?
No but. But the official... Damn. Curses! Foiled again! The official, I think, dictionary definition of scrying is foretelling the future by using a crystal ball or some type of reflective surface.
Reflective surface.
So I would say that's relatively accurate, except I would caveat it by saying it's not necessarily just foretelling the future. It can also be used for communicating with spirits and things like that. So much more purpose-wise than just fortune telling, if you will.
So typically when I think of scrying, I think of a gypsy woman. What?
A crystal and a map.
We were making fun of that earlier.
I'm making fun of Charmed.
If you've ever watched Charmed, they scry with a pendulum and a map to find out where the warlock is. I
suppose it's kind of fortune telling, but they're like, I remember the first time I saw it, and they were like, oh, we got to scry for this. And I was like, cool, they're going to do scrying. And they whip out this crystal and spin it around. And I'm like, that's not scrying. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
Typically when I think of scrying, I think of gypsy women with balls, crystal balls. Would you stop? He's awful today. With crystal balls telling the future.
Indeed.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, we don't have a crystal ball.
We don't. We have. We've had them.
And we have some in Denver, but we don't have one here to show you. But I'm sure you can imagine.
We'll probably get to the reason for that here in a bit.
Yeah. Not conducive to... Well, and also, we've tried them before. If you've ever scried.
Not my method.
Yeah.
I've done it and it works, but I have other methods that work better for me personally, so I don't tend to use a crystal ball.
So what is the definition of scrying?
I thought we just did that.
But you have a whole outline over there.
So if we take the dictionary definition that we had, which was fortune telling using a reflective surface, I would expand that by saying it's the ability or skill. I know where you're going.
Then get there.
I'm just giving you a hard time. The ability or skill to look also into other dimensions or planes in addition to fortune telling by using those.
Okay.
So
form of remote viewing, as it were, in a way?
Could be. I mean, I think remote viewing is a very specific type of that. Do you want to close the door?
Sure.
Okay. We're going to close the door so it's a little lighter in here. Probably turn... Well, no. I don't think we turn the lights on. I think we're just... that sun is just a little too bright.
What?
Well, not for me. For the camera.
I know.
Good, now it's all dark.
Now it's dark.
Yeah, hopefully it'll compensate here. Yeah, they're lightened up a bit.
Hello, I'm back.
All right. So yeah, I would just expand that to say looking into other realms or dimensions. I mean, remote viewing is a very specific type of scrying where they're looking in our dimension at a different physical location.
Right.
And I personally would classify that as a type of scrying as well.
Yeah, I agree. I can remember my earliest experience of scrying was in elementary school. And I
started early.
I did. I had just gotten my first gold ring, and it had one tiny diamond in it. I think I was 9 or 10, and I remember sitting at my desk, staring into my ring and seeing whole worlds within it. And I was just seeing all these landscapes and was just in awe until I heard these kids at a table next to me pointing and laughing and that kind of thing. So I kind of stopped scrying for a while there.
Yeah, I used to have, I think one of the first pentagrams I ever had was it had the Theban alphabet around it and a pentagram, but the backside was a black oval.
Ooh,
and it was supposed to be able to use it for scrying. A little too small for me to use.
I can use teeny tiny things.
Yeah, teach their own.
LASIK.
So can anybody scry?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think. It's also...
You just sit down and go?
No.
Some people could, I think. It's a natural... I think it's a natural gift for some.
But it's also something that can be learned.
Can be learned and developed.
True.
For others. It's a psychic ability, essentially.
Psychic
and
ability.
You can learn that. I would say, if you've never scryed before, give it a shot if you want, but I would probably start with a meditational practice for a while. Get used to disciplining your mind to sit and focus on something for a period of time, because if you're trying to communicate with an entity, and you've got to keep that focus on that entity. I mean, we've had scrying sessions that were an hour long or more with an entity.
Absolutely.
And as the scryer, you've got to keep that focus. If you lose the focus, sometimes, not always, sometimes they'll dissipate and they're gone, and they're either difficult or you're unable to get them back. So you definitely got to have some mental, some concentrating abilities, and you can develop that through meditation.
Right. So before we get into those techniques, how would you want to prepare yourself?
Well, like in the Golden Dawn, which I know a little bit about, scrying is considered a fairly advanced technique.
Yes.
It takes a while you go through quite a bit of internal processes and meditations and development before you get to the point where you're actually doing some scrying. Technically, to be honest, in most cases, it's several years before you get to the point where you'd be doing some scrying. And I think that's appropriate within the context of the Golden Dawn, for sure. That's not
outside of the Golden Dawn.
Well, and that's not to say you couldn't even scry in the Golden Dawn. We've had members of our order who did scrying a little bit earlier than that. Just nothing real formal, just kind of working on it as a meditative practice, and they got some results. So
yeah, absolutely.
It's definitely something you can do. Preparations like meditational skills, learning to ignore distractions, physical distractions, itches, scratching your face. Coronavirus, don't touch your face.
Ooh, so why are you doing that?
Because I don't have coronavirus.
That you know of.
All those things you learn from meditating, to sit quietly and compose yourself and be able to block out distractions. You can't be communicating with an entity and a fire truck goes by and you hear a siren and you get distracted and you lose it. I mean, you've got to be able to keep that focus, and you can learn a lot of that through meditational practice of various kinds.
But that's kind of the foundation for all types of practice or magical work, I would think, is learning to focus and taking yourself to a trance or meditative state fairly easily, and being able to drop yourself into it and out of it where you need to. Yep.
And I know in my scrying class, one of the things we work on is, when you talk about the astral world, the astral realm, I mean, the astral realm is huge, right? The universe is huge. The astral realm is just as huge. And there's different parts of it. And I tend to refer to what we work with initially as our own sandbox.
Yeah.
You don't want to try to immediately go to one of the, say, Enochian aethers, or to a different plane of existence, or, to actually leave your body and go to Yesod.
Can you go to Atlantis?
Or Palladia?
Pleiades? Well, that is a star system.
Anyway.
You probably need to stop telling so many inside jokes on here.
You don't want to jump right. That would be akin to, taking your 5-year-old who's never swam before and just throwing them in the deep end of the pool.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to do very well. So you want to take baby steps. So,
however, babies.
I said 5-year-old.
Steps,
I said 5-year-old.
yes.
I didn't say baby.
But then you said babies. Anyway, interesting side note. Babies can swim if you just drop them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because they used to be in the water.
They'll hold their breath, which is interesting.
They
Anyway.
used to be in the water.
End of side note.
See, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, playground. So one of the concepts that I use in my class is creating your own astral sandbox. So basically, if you think about when you were a little kid, your parents let you out in the backyard and you had a sandbox back there and you could go play in the sandbox. But you couldn't necessarily go to the neighbor's sandbox until you got a little bit older. Then you made friends with the neighbor kid. You're a little older, a little more responsible. Parents let you go to the neighbors. Then pretty soon they let you go to the playground, to a park. You know, your world slowly expands.
Sandbox love never dies.
Yep. And same thing with working in the astral world. Stick in your own backyard, meaning your own head for now. You know, and that way you're not going to run into any beings or entities or elementals or anything that might give you challenges or problems if you're not experienced to deal with those. So, kind of just staying in your own head. The images that crop up are probably from your own subconscious. So, you know, everything's within you, but it gives you the chance to start exploring and gain some experience with scrying and other astral work.
So what can you use for scrying aside from a crystal ball? Reflective surface, yeah, but could I use like my table? Depends on how reflective it is, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, like a wooden table that's got a high sheen of varnish, maybe.
One thing that I would note, though, is you don't want there to be any inclusions or anything.
Patterns.
That would not help.
That just becomes distracting. For most people. So some scrying mirrors you'll see that you purchase, maybe you're in a frame, and it's a decorative frame with like swirls and all that stuff around. I think that's detrimental to scrying because you're looking in the mirror and your attention constantly gets drawn away by the little thingies all around it. So,
and you want your attention to be focused and drawn towards something within it.
In the mirror.
Right.
Yep.
The mirror? We didn't say mirror.
What?
What?
No, so some of the things you can use for scrying, just to rattle them off really quick. Crystal ball. I've used clear crystal and I have used black crystal.
Onyx works.
Obsidian.
Onyx. Obsidian works best.
Those work. Well, for me, crystal balls, whether they're clear or black, don't work the greatest. I've used them both and had success with them, but they're not my favorite. Bowl of water.
Bowl of water works great. A lake, surface of a lake.
Lake.
You do want to be careful with the reflections. So you want to be careful with that.
But water works great. It's one that I'm drawn to working with more and more. I've done it before, but definitely something that I'm drawn to more. And then scrying mirrors. So they're called black mirrors typically because they're usually black. Can you use a normal mirror like your bathroom mirror?
I would say no.
You can, but it's so reflective and it reflects everything, including the distractions around you.
Well, and including yourself.
Right. And the detail.
Right.
In every detail. A black mirror, when you look in it, you see...
Do you have something to show the class?
I do. I'll get there. You see the outline of yourself and a little bit of detail, but not like crisp, clear detail like looking in a bathroom mirror.
Right.
And there's a spirit now.
Hi.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We didn't even scry for you. So welcome. So
the other thing before we show a couple of things, I would say there's two different things you can use a scrying mirror or crystal ball or bowl of water for. One is if you summon an entity, whether it be an elemental or an Enochian entity or angel or what have you, you use the mirror to see the entity in. And for me, and this is going to work differently for everybody, for me, when I gaze in the mirror, I kind of let my eyes go out of focus and I see my own reflection. And my own reflection usually changes and the
Into
entity
something
takes
else.
its place. And usually I see the entity then from then on out. I don't see myself anymore.
If you remember those posters or those books that have the images within them, and you kind of have to unfocus your eyes to see what they are. I don't know what those are called.
Yeah, it's like that.
Yeah, it's like that. So you want to get really good at seeing past the very surface reflection. You want to get good at being able to see beyond it. Same thing as in those pictures. You can finally see a number or a shape or an animal or whatever it is within it. And you want to be able to do that, unfocus your eyes, unfocus your attention from the very reflective surface into beyond and behind it.
And then the second thing I would say is, in addition to working with an entity, would be going to another realm.
Yeah.
And you
That's fun.
basically are pushing your consciousness
So you're not just looking, but
through
you're
your
taking
third eye
yourself
into
through.
the mirror, and you're projecting yourself into there, where you're going to go visit various other landscapes and
Other
places and climates and whatnot.
people.
Yep, you'll run into people for sure.
Yes.
So yeah, bringing an entity to the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
and then projecting yourself into the mirror to go to other places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
So, show and tell time. Little bitty bowl.
A little small for me. I'd have trouble. It's like using a crystal ball. It's a little bit too small. Not enough.
This works well for me.
Not enough room for me.
And then, I don't know if you can see. Yeah, it's pretty reflective on the inside too. Yeah, buddy.
Fill that boy with water. That worked for me.
That one works well.
So
and
once
then
you
can
fill it,
also see on the inside, I'm wanting to show
it's a little
how
reflective.
reflective
It's a
it
little
is.
more dull than that one, but
yeah,
still works. So once you fill it with water, do you put your face down in it?
No. I do get a little bit closer.
Reference.
It's not a pensive. So I do get a little bit close to my mirrors or whatever this is. I get a little bit closer until things start to get into the focus that I need them to. And then I find a comfortable distance to sit. You do want to be sure that you're comfortably sitting.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want your body to start straining or your shoulders to ache.
My back.
Because that would completely distract you from what it is that you're trying to do. So you do want to sit and be comfortable when you're trying to do this.
Yep. So a bowl of water.
Works.
That's what I use for water.
Imagine a crystal ball here.
Crystal ball. I highly recommend a black obsidian crystal ball. The problem with the clear one does what to your image?
Reverses it, turns it upside down.
Flips it upside down. So when you're gazing into a crystal ball,
a quartz or clear crystal ball.
It's going to flip your image upside down, which isn't a problem for scrying. What it is a problem with is your own mind. Mm-hmm. If that distracts you, seeing yourself upside down, then you're going to have trouble getting past that to actually be able to scry an entity
seeing books in reverse
or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
So if it works for you, great. I've done it before myself. It's not the greatest for me, but it's worked. Black obsidian though works pretty good. Gazing into that again, you kind of get the rounded surface, so things are distorted slightly already, which can be good. I mean, when I gaze into even a flat mirror and put my gaze out of focus, like you were talking about, that's when that out of focusness is blurring the image and distorting it already. When you look into a crystal ball, the image is already going to be a little distorted, so it might help towards that end.
Right. Cool. Yeah, I prefer my surfaces to be flat when they can be. Even like with my little ring that I had, it was just a flat surface.
So, my favorite one for scrying. Ooh. Let you see the
other side of our screen.
What's behind the screen there?
Plants.
And just so you know, in the daylight like this and on camera, this thing is way more reflective than it is when you're looking at it in person. I mean, that almost looks like a regular mirror, just a little bit dark.
Yeah.
But when you look at it yourself, it's just a dark image of you. So it's definitely more reflective both on camera and in the bright daylight.
Yeah.
I usually scry in the evenings and at night. And
at night.
it's dark already, so your image isn't quite as crisp. Mm-hmm. So scrying mirror is what I use. I've made a bunch of these. And can make you one if you'd like one.
If you'd like a scrying mirror, let us know.
If you'd like a scrying mirror, just let me know what size you would want.
Or we can even put some on the
and what shape,
page.
Whether you want it round, oval, or square. I've made a scrying mirror. I made a scrying mirror that was poster size.
Yeah.
It was like 3 feet by 2 feet.
What happened to that? Did it break? No.
No, I think we sold it when we cleared it out.
I think we sold it.
When we were running the clearance stuff. So black mirror, you can buy these online as well, but I can custom make one for you as well. And yeah, so that's what I use. I have just a little plastic stand that it actually sits in. Sits on my altar when I do my scrying.
This makes me nervous.
Here, I'll put it over here.
Somewhere flat.
Yeah, right here.
Whee!
So, scrying.
Cool. Kind of all we had for you, yeah? Short and sweet today.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about some of the types of entities. I mean, when you're scrying, you can work with elementals, summon elemental entities. You can summon Enochian entities, although that's a whole complex system in and of itself.
Yeah.
We've done some elemental scrying where we did a simple invocation of the elements in the form of like a greater invoking ritual, the pentagram, to bring that elemental energy up, and then have an invocation that we give to call out to any elemental of that element that would like to come and communicate with us. And sometimes they pop in, and once in a while they don't, but
usually they do.
Yep. And we have...
And you do want to be sure, if you do come in contact with an entity, that you have parameters to ask them and reinforce their nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with elemental work in Golden Dawn style, there's particular signs for each element, and you would give that sign to the entity so that they could either give it in return or
like a dance.
Disappear. We've had them disappear when we give the sign, which means they were probably some kind of astral junk that was just turning themselves up.
Yep.
Came to the call.
And that's okay too. So yeah. And sometimes it's not effective at all. We've had scrying sessions where just nothing happens. Nothing. The magician will be doing his work. The scribe will be doing their work. The scryer is doing theirs, and then nothing.
Angels, archangels. I have my own particular viewpoint on the archangels, and that I don't usually believe that the archangels themselves come to visit.
Yeah, I think they're a little bit busier than that.
They send an emissary,
They send someone in their stead.
Yeah. They're not. They're
bigger than that.
Yeah. But anyway, that's my own personal thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, archangels, angels, summoning them to
elementals,
work with.
Other chthonic deities or entities, not deities, but entities, or even underworld entities you can get in contact with, or spirits.
So Poke Runyon's method of working with like the Goetia, he takes the triangle of art, and actually puts, so if you're familiar with triangle of art, you've got a triangle with a circle inside of it and then writing and inscriptions around it. He took the circle in the middle, or maybe they left the circle in the middle. I don't remember the details. It's been a long time since I read his stuff. They either left the circle there and propped another scrying mirror upright in it, or they took the circle and they stood it up and actually scried into that circle. In my triangle of art, I have one side of it that the circle is actually chalk paint. So I can inscribe the sigil of the entity on the chalk paint, which brings them to summoning. Or if I flip it over, I've actually got little hooks that I can insert my scrying mirror and hook it in place, so I could actually lean it up just a little bit and scry into it. I've not done that before, but I built it so that I had the capability to do that. Chthonic entities for sure, goetic. Yeah, I mean, any entities that exist, usually you're not going to get like this physical manifestation.
Sometimes
you're not gonna,
they come as smoke or as...
Right.
Yeah.
Or you see them in the smoke.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole conversation threads on what visible appearance means, and I really don't want to get into that, but there's not typically going to be this physical manifestation, as in you could walk up to them and
what up,
touch and pat and shake hands, and
which you shouldn't do anyway.
No, you should be keeping your social distance from your entities. But anyway, you're usually not going to have that physical manifestation. There's other types of manifestations, though, that are visible.
Right.
And a scrying mirror can work to that effect, if that's what you want it to.
So when you're doing this, is there a danger of getting lost within there, or of having your psyche be permanently damaged or harmed in any way?
Is there a possibility? Yes, I would say. Is it very likely? No.
Probably not.
I think if you're projecting yourself into the mirror and you're going way off track. The thing is, when you project yourself, there's always a trail back. Mm-hmm. That being said, there can be parts of yourself that can get even just maybe temporarily cut off, and it can be painful. It can cause headaches. You can have some various
take away headaches, because I'm dealing with this awful headache right now.
I don't think so. You can have various side effects.
Can you get rid of headaches? I'm joking. Kind of. Anyway. Back to scrying. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's always dangers. I mean, magical work. People who...
Is there a danger of bringing something with you?
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So you want to be sure that you have your...
Which is why you work in your sandbox first.
Yes.
Get used to it, familiar with it.
Yeah.
Begin some other banishing practices, get familiar with things so that... Here's the thing.
Have anything around you that you typically use for protection. Do rituals of protection before you start or attempt any scrying.
Here's the thing.
Uh-oh.
Coming up against an unwanted entity that you really need to get rid of is not the time you need to be going... No.
Wait, what was that? What do I do? No.
Yeah, that's not the time for that. Mm-mm. You need to have some of your banishings and your basic work
if that's what you use. If you don't use banishings or anything like that, you want to be sure that you have some kind of other form of protection.
Something. And it needs to be...
Would a circle of salt around you be sufficient protection?
Depends on your tradition.
I would think so. If you firmly believe that salt around you can help protect you, then absolutely.
So,
Hey, Heather. No worries.
Hi, Heather.
We'll try to get better about letting y'all know before we do these.
I posted earlier today.
I know, but we'll try to get better at doing that consistently.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, whether it's a banishing or a cleansing or, however you look at it, whatever it is that you do, whether for yourself personally or in a tradition or what have you, needs to be like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, you need to be able to just do it.
If you wear protective crystals or jewelry or anything, you do want to have those on as well. But definitely want to be prepared, and you want to know your stuff. So if you are calling upon a particular entity or elemental, for example, you want to be sure that you know their name, that you know what they would present as, and that you can ask them those questions when they do show up, if they do. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's, there's... Some people say, "Oh, it's just magic. There's no risk. There's no danger. I mean, there's nothing bad that can happen to you." And I disagree. I have seen
some of the best authors and magicians out there who try to manipulate certain traditional aspects of a system tend to get really screwed up mentally.
Mm-hmm. Seen it happen more than once. Mm-hmm. that
there is a real danger.
Something happens, they do something either incorrectly or, you know, that's basically kind of against their tradition, or they change something major, and before you know it, they're exhibiting signs of, you know,
Crazy?
Split personalities, craziness, you know, all kinds of disorders that I'm not qualified to diagnose. Sort of.
Well, I don't want to get into diagnosis.
Identify, not diagnose.
Yeah, I could, but.
So, you know, there is a very real danger that can be out there when working with entities and powers that are beyond the realm that we are used to as people.
One thing that I always like to be sure that I do, even outside of any ritualistic work, is to do a good cleansing bath before and after any type of scrying. I use different herbs, different oils, depending on the purpose and what I'm doing at that time, to really kind of cleanse myself and get myself ready. Shush.
Makes you smell good too.
You like the way I smell. Either way. So anyway, definitely have that available and ready for you to do if that's a practice that you feel would help you as well. Donning certain robes.
I mean, you know, whatever it is, establish a practice. It doesn't have to be super ritualistic. If you're not into, you know, ritual and doing things at the same time, that's fine. Doesn't matter. I am. That's what I like to do, but that's not everybody's bailiwick, and I totally get that. But, you know, find something that works for you and make sure you use it. So if you use the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, for your banishing, make sure you know it well before you undertake something like this so that you can use it. You know, don't be like, oh, I've practiced the lesser banishing ritual, the pentagram, twice, so I'm ready to go. No. Work it a couple of hundred times where it has become second nature. Not only second nature doing the motions, second nature channeling the energies and doing what needs to be done with it. So, you know, whatever the practice is, just make sure you're comfortable with it before you undertake some of the heavier things like scrying an entity, especially if it's a chthonic one that may not have your best interests at heart sometimes.
And when it comes to doing this stuff, we recognize that there is quite a big element of fear that comes along with this. You want to be sure to cast some of that aside as best as you can. And because along with fear, we'll start to bring in other predatory energies or entities, and you want to be careful with that. You want to be sure that you are the magician in the room, or the witch in the room, or whatever it is that you want to call yourself. You want to be sure that you are the one who is standing their ground, and that other things cannot come after you.
When I'm a magician, when she's scrying, even if we're doing what is supposed to be a benevolent entity that shouldn't have any risk or ill intent towards us, the reality is when you first issue a call, you don't know who might respond to that first. And so...
Yay! Good job. Ken, good job.
Yep, Ken has used the LBRP as a ward.
Successfully.
Awesome. Love it.
Yes.
So when I do when I'm magicianing,
and I'm scrying,
I've got my lotus wand in one hand because that's what I use to do the summoning. Wearing my sword, and usually for the first little bit, I don't stand there with my sword drawn because that can be threatening.
Yes.
But I will stand there with my hand on my sword, ready to get it out, because in the Golden Dawn, the Mars sword is used specifically for banishing entities that won't cooperate and getting rid of them. So, I mean, I'm ready to go, standing by until we get identification and have identified the entity and that they've responded with signs and we feel comfortable that they are benevolent. Then I relax off that a little bit. Right. Until then, I'm ready because I don't want anything untoward to happen to me as the magician, because my energies are opened up. And to her as the scryer, she's even more vulnerable because she's completely opened up trying to see what's there. So, you know, some of these, a fair amount of entities are kind of maybe not even evil or nasty, but they're tricky.
It's their nature. And that's just how they are and who they are, and you can't change that. But they will play with you. They will mess with you. They will turn things on you in a way that's hurtful sometimes, but it's how it goes. And to that effect, not only are you seeing into their world, but they are seeing into yours. So just recognize that they are seeing you, they are seeing things closer, they are seeing you and your soul being bared as you stand there in front of them. So, yeah.
As we're sitting here, I get a pop-up that says, Abraxas has sent you a friend request. Somebody's name on Facebook is Abraxas.
Abraxas just sent me.
Abraxas just sent you a friend request. What?
There's got to be some meaning to that, right?
Indeed. Let's see. Just wondering what you think of some of the... Heather is asking, just wondered what you think of some of the ghost shows where banishment is done very quickly.
You know, I saw this one, like, Ghost Hunters episode where they did a LeBurp out in the middle of a lake or something like that, which I found really interesting, and they actually did it correctly. Depending on how they banish on the ghost shows, and I'm not quite sure which one you're talking about there, Heather, but if they determine that it needs to be done very quickly, you can. I can do a LeBurp pretty quickly, but I'm not sure if that's what you mean, Heather, or do you mean banishing the ghosts themselves pretty quickly?
I'm guessing that's what she's talking about.
Okay.
I would say it depends on the strength of the entity.
And some entities, some ghosts don't even need to be banished. So I guess it kind of depends on the purpose there. Are they being harmful? Are they...
Well, what's the banishing? You're not necessarily destroying them. You're throwing them away for a little while and cutting them off from your view. So, it's not like you're killing them and, destroying their energy.
Ghosts themselves. Yeah. Again, if for example, if you had somebody who said they had a ghost in their house and they called upon us to come and banish them, for example, if that's what the owner of the home wanted us to do, then I think that that's something that we would do. We're getting paid to do that. But at the same time, ghosts themselves, are huge. Ghosts, right. That's
could be a lot of different things.
There's a lot of caveats there. What kind of spirit is it? Is it even something that you can banish? Who knows?
Or it may even be temporary banished, and it's
they may be playing with you and be like, "Oh, you scared me away," just to appease the human.
Yeah.
And then they come back and mess with you even more.
But I've ran into some entities that can be dashed away with a single sign. I've run into other ones that takes a little bit more, like a lesser ritual, the pentagram, and I've run into other ones that take a greater ritual.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Or even different herbs or cleansing practices, or washing things away also helps. Using different waters to get rid of them, using different limpia types of practices that you can do as well.
So yeah.
Cool. Good questions, Heather. Thank you.
All right.
I think that's all we got.
That's all I got for tonight.
Tomorrow, what are we discussing?
I don't know.
Tomorrow, Tuesday. I have some ideas, but if you have an idea, drop one in the comments. We'll let you go so you don't have to sit here watching us stare at each other. Unless you like that.
We'll come up with a subject.
If you're into that, let us know.
Usually we don't come up with it until shortly before the call anyway.
Well, it depends.
Depends.
We want this to be something that you get value out of and that you get something out of instead of us just bullshitting around. But that's fun too sometimes.
We've kind of taught enough classes over the years that kind of have a little bit of a repertoire of things we can pull out. So
yeah.
Anyway, thanks for joining us today, and we will be back tomorrow.
Hope you're well. Hope you're safe.
Same time. Yep. Watch your social distancing.
Wash your hands.
From people and spirits.
People and spirits. Keep your distance.
And
I don't know. I get in bed with some of my spirits, but we'll see. All right, guys.
All right.
See you tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.